Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. In the early hours of today, another dramatic escalation unfolded over Eastern Europe as Ukraine launched a daring wave of roughly 370 unmanned aerial vehicles directly toward Moscow, and the immediate aftermath sent shockwaves around the world. The audacity of such an operation cannot be overstated. This is breaking news, and we bring you the most up-to-date account of what happened, why it matters, and what may come next. Ukraine's decision to send this massive swarm of drones deep into Russian territory represents a bold strategic move. It speaks to both the shift in tactical thinking and the desperation of a nation under threat. Ukrainian officials say the drones were intended to degrade Russian air defenses, command centers and logistical nodes across Moscow's region. The plan was to saturate and overwhelm their systems. Russian air defenses have traditionally relied on layers of radar-guided missile systems, surface-to-air batteries and fighter interceptors, but when hundreds of low-cost drones arrive simultaneously, some could evade detection or overwhelm the response capacity. As the drones set forth from multiple launching sites within Ukrainian territory, they traversed hundreds of miles of hostile airspace. This journey exposed them to layers of Russian radar and interception zones, yet reports indicate that a number of the drones penetrated deep into the Moscow region before encountering resistance. Russian defenses scrambled interceptors, surface-to-air missiles and electronic jamming systems. The initial Russian response was aggressive and immediate. News outlets in Moscow report explosions near key infrastructure nodes, including energy substations and communication hubs in the outer suburbs. Some of these strikes caused localized blackouts and interrupted cellular service. Russian officials acknowledge the attack but attempt to downplay its severity. They claim most drones were intercepted before reaching critical targets. Others assert that the attack was largely symbolic, meant to send a message about Ukraine's reach. Nevertheless, satellite imagery and drone footage captured clouds of smoke rising west of Moscow. The visual evidence contradicts some Russian public statements and points to a degree of success for the Ukrainian operation. Some drones reportedly struck munition depots, warehouses and secondary power lines. The ripple effects include utility disruptions to surrounding neighborhoods. Blackouts lasted for hours in multiple districts. The Russian military reacted swiftly, deploying air defense systems across Greater Moscow. Some batteries were repositioned from less threatened sectors to protect vital nodes. The Russian Air Force also scrambled fighters and patrols over vulnerable zones. The intensity of response suggests that Moscow viewed this strike not as a minor nuisance but as a serious breach of its security perimeter. On the Ukrainian side, military analysts describe the operation as a message as much as a weapon. This was not just about destroying infrastructure, it was about psychological impact, signaling capability and intent to threaten strategic Russian assets deep in enemy territory. Ukraine is proving it can project force beyond mere border skirmishes. This may raise the cost of Russian aggression and change the calculus in future engagements. But the strike carries significant risks. The drones used are relatively inexpensive compared to missiles, but their loss is inevitable. Many did not survive the journey. Some were shot down or malfunctioned. Others fell harmlessly in unpopulated areas, but using sheer mass. Ukraine hoped that even with high attrition, enough would succeed to force Russia to respond heavily, draining their resources. Critics caution that escalation could spiral. The Kremlin may feel compelled to retaliate with deeper strikes into Ukraine, perhaps targeting command and control or power grids in multiple cities. Ukraine risks inviting devastating counterattacks. Russia also may retaliate, diplomatically pressuring international players to distance themselves from Ukrainian support. The stakes are high. So far we have not seen a clear declaration from Moscow of a major retaliatory operation, but Russian statements hint at increased defensive posture, heightened vigilance and possible counterstrikes. Their intelligence services are working around the clock to trace drone origins, launching sites and supply chains. They aim to cut off future campaigns before they begin. Meanwhile, international reactions are pouring in. Some Western leaders express unease, wishing escalation can remain controlled. Others voice support for Ukraine's right to strike back, saying this shows that Moscow is not immune. Cautious diplomats warn that the war is entering a new phase, one where boundaries are less certain and front lines blur. There is fear that conflicts may widen beyond the immediate war zone. In Moscow, residents awakened to sirens, jet roars and official alerts. The government urged calm and assured residents that essential services are intact. They asked people to stay indoors and announced that damage was limited. Meanwhile, Kremlin spokespersons attempted to reassure the public that the capital remained secure and under full control. They described the attack as an escalation but insisted the response was effective. On the ground in Ukraine, officials hailed the operation as a triumph of innovation, adaptability and resolve. They praised the drone designers, engineers and operators who executed the mission under immense risk. Some analysts say this may herald a new era of warfare where mass low-cost drones will redefine strategic equations. States with advanced air defenses may find themselves vulnerable to saturation attacks. Military experts caution that both sides will now have to adapt. Ukraine must improve drone resilience, stealth and navigation while reducing losses. Russia must deepen its detection systems, deploy more interceptors and diversify its layered defenses. Russia may fast-track procurement of high-end radar systems, directed energy weapons or counter-drone technologies. Some nations will take note and accelerate drone investments themselves. The human dimension cannot be ignored. Behind these headlines are civilians displaced, fearful and vulnerable in Moscow, areas hit by blackouts or infrastructure damage faced uncertainty in Ukraine. Families waited anxiously for news of operators involved in dangerous missions. Some may not return. The cost of war always falls hardest on ordinary people. We also must consider the strategic symbolism. This operation demonstrates that no city is entirely safe, even behind layers of defense. It sends a message that if the war continues, Russia cannot assume immunity extends to its heartland. Attackers can reach deep targets once considered out of reach are now exposed. The message may strengthen Ukraine's hand in future negotiations. But success will be measured not by headlines or short-term shock but by sustained capability. Ukraine must repeat and sustain such pressure while managing losses. Russia will try to harden its heartland. The next rounds of conflict will hinge on innovation, speed, adaptation and international support. The balance could shift again. In coming days we will watch for signs of retaliation, deeper strikes, escalation across multiple fronts, shifts in alliances or diplomatic initiatives. A misstep could lead to uncontrollable escalation or open conflict, expansion to new regions. The world watches with trepidation. Thank you for staying with us through this report. Please like, subscribe and share the video so more people are informed. We will bring updates as new information becomes available. Stay tuned.